and we're off. Hopefully this will be a little bit better than the previous recording. We split the difference with the microphone, and you should sound better.
Yeah, well, I don't have to wear it up here, you see.
Well, I was reading some of the comments to you, and you said you wanted to answer a couple of them.
Yeah, I could talk about those things.
Well, which was the one that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, well, when I first went to England, I wasn't, planning on staying. I was just going to visit Eric, and it was Steve Cropper's suggestion. And as a matter of fact, he's the one that paid for my airplane ticket. He suggested that I give Eric a call. And I said, well, just tell him, get him on the phone and tell him you've left Delaney and you'd like to just kind of clear your head, and maybe you come visit for a few days. And I said, that sounds good. And I said, I hadn't got any money. He said, don't worry about all that. And so I'll be dang. I had Eric's phone number, and I called it right then, and he answered the phone, and that's only one of two times I ever knew that he actually talked on the phone to anybody. The other was when George called and asked us to put the band together. But when I was in California, you got to get the picture. I was living across the street and one door down from Delaney and Bonnie, and I was the sole survivor of the everybody else had fled like lemmings to the sea, They left and did the Mad Dogs thing. And when it was time for me to go, didn't know what to do. I knew I didn't want to go to Memphis. I didn't want to stay in LA. I didn't know what to do. And so that's when I called Cropper, and he suggested I go see Eric. Well, that was a Wednesday. And I called Eric, and he answered the phone. I said, hey, man, it's Bobby here. I said, wondering if I could come visit. I said, I've left Delaney and him, and I just really and I really did have to take a break and clear my head. And he said, come on over. And I said, okay. And hung the phone up and called back Cropper. And he said, I told Steve, he said, for me to come on over. And Crop said, okay, I'll get you a ticket. And I had a ticket the next day. They didn't do it like they do them now. Somebody like UPS or somebody delivered the ticket to my door. And I got on the plane the next day and arrived in England, and I had about $300. When I cashed it in, it was about 170 pounds at $2.46 a pound then, $2.46 a pound. And I hailed a black cab out of Heathrow and said, take me to Mr. Clapton's house, outside of Cranley. And he said, I've always wanted to go there. And so off we went through the countryside to Eric's house, and that meter was tick, 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 tick. And my money was just going further and further and further and further down the further we got there. And it cost about 100 pounds to get to his house from the airport. Pulled up, and it was in an afternoon. It was Saturday. I'm talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, this Saturday. And he came out. I saw him looking out the window, and he came out, and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, you told me to come on over. Here I am. And I had a suitcase and a guitar. And he said, well, come on in. Gave me a big hug and said, go pick out your room. And there wasn't anybody there except Eric and me. And I had about 70 pounds left after that. He took me around and showed me art college where he went to school and where he, grew up, in Ripley and all this. And introduced me to a few of his friends, Ben Palmer being one, who was then the bass player with Roosters. And he passed away recently, and I think he became a sculptor, if I'm not mistaken. But Eric had some real interesting friends, all very, I don't know the word, eclectic, uh, real unusual people. And come find out, I'm one of those unusual people. Art-minded, artistic-minded. And Eric was going to be a stained glass artist. And I guess the guitar took a little heavier than heating up that metal. And we went out to have lunch. After about 3 or 4 days, he had taken me to town, bought a shirt and all that stuff, and then come back to the house. And it wasn't long, it wasn't even a week. We went out, Don, his guy that drove us around, a one-eyed Don. He was kind of like Marty Feldman, hump, what hump, But he did, he had one eye, and he drove us around in George's little Mini, that psychedelic Mini. And we went to have lunch one afternoon at a truck stop that was above, on an overpass like this, above the motorway. I don't know, he liked to go to those, Eric liked going to those places like that because nobody, I don't know if they didn't recognize him or they just didn't care, but that's what suited him, keeping his feet, keeping himself grounded.
I would imagine that he grew up eating in those
places. He grew up there, and people knew who he was. They wouldn't bother him though, with all that, well, Mr. Clapton, and all this stuff. But that afternoon, I decided I was going to pay for the meal, and I just did things by the numbers. I didn't try to weigh it out how much a pound was worth and all of this stuff and the dollar value. And I still do that way when I go anywhere. It's going to be what it's going to be. You're not going to argue about it. It's like trying to put gas in your car here. Doesn't matter if it's $2 or $10. You're going to fill your tank up. But I went to get the tab. I said, let me get it. Because he'd been paying for everything. I said, let me get it. And then I went up to pay it, and they told me how much it was. And I said, do I have enough here? And she said, no. She said, I'm afraid you don't. So I went back and sat down. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to be going back to America because, and he said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, I run out of money. And I need to get back. I don't even know where I'm going to go. He said, well, I thought we were putting together a band. And it was like, just like that. I went, wow. And he said, I don't have any money either. He said, let's go to Stiggy's office Monday, and we'll both get some money, and we'll go out and go do some shopping. And I went, wow, that's great. He said, we'll tell him. He said, we'll tell Stigwood what we got in plans, So, right off, we started. He introduced me to his friends and showed me where and how he grew up. Met his grandmother, Rose. She took to me right away. She loved me. She knew I was innocent to the whole world and everything. She was a sweet lady. She passed away a few years back. But his grandmother raised him. And after we went back and went shopping and did our thing, next thing you know, he said, what do you want to do? He said, let's write some songs. I said, all right. He said, you got any ideas? I said, no, not really. He said, I got an idea. And we went in the living room and he played me all the chord progression till I looked away. But just the guitar part. And he played me the whole thing. And I said, what key is it in? He said, G. And so I did this. He said, not like that. He said, that's the way a girl does a G. He said, like this. And he showed me how to. And he said, it'll open up doors for you. And I did. And it did. And he said, we'll go upstairs and tonight and work on it, and then we'll write the song tomorrow. And that's what we did. I went upstairs and got all the changes together, and the next day we just started out and wrote our first song.
how did you come up with I Looked Away?
Don't know. It was just like invented a story,
Right.
you know, like a love that nobody could have, you know, that we couldn't have. And she took my hand and tried to make me understand that she would always be
Do you
there.
remember who was coming up with that particular
That
idea?
was both of us, you know, both of us were feeding.
Bouncing.
I was inventing some relationship because I had no
You
girlfriends
did
or
that a
anything
lot,
like
though,
that.
didn't you, back then? You invented things like that.
Yeah, yeah. When you grew up the way I grew up, you had to put yourself into the situation, like for real. Like when I was working as a boy, you know, working in the fields and stuff, I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. So I took it all in, you know.
Did you imagine another
I
life?
adapted, you know.
Did you imagine another life somewhere when you were in the fields working?
Yeah, but I didn't know how my life was going to evolve or how it was going to change, and that's pretty deep thinking for somebody who's like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
But you were thinking of getting out of there.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be forever. All my mom and I were trying to do was put some food on the table.
Right. Well, did you dream about, you know, like what you wanted to be? Or?
No, I didn't have a clue. I know that Nikita Khrushchev slamming his. I remember seeing it on television, on black and white TV, that said, "We will bury you." Bam, slamming his shoe on a thing, and there was war going on, and I couldn't understand where this war was and how big this planet was, and how could we be at war somewhere, you know, and it not affect everybody, you know. Now, things that an 8-year-old, 9-year-old shouldn't have to be concerned themselves with, you know.
But you do when you're involved in war, like I was with the Vietnam War when my dad was.
Yeah, well,
So
it's a part
hard
of
to get
you.
away from it. Well, so do you remember when you first drove in England?
Yeah.
Was it confusing? Was it...
Well, here's how it started out. Because I stayed at Hurtwood Edge, and I had a room there for a year. And I didn't live there for a whole year, but I had my room there for a year because I got my own place after a while. And but Eric had a little mini motorbike, little bitty one, you know. And then he had a Honda 350, I think it was, motorcycle. And I took the little mini and I was riding it all over. He has a 20-acre estate. And I was riding it up and down and flipping, and I bent the handlebars and stuff on it. And I'm just having a big time, you know. And then I went out to drive on the Honda, and Don was coming in to drive. I was going out, and I was honking it too, and I had to go sideways to put the brakes on and slammed it to the front of the Mini, George's psychedelic Mini, and bent up the front of the Mini, and I went flying over the top. I was already skinned up a little bit, you know, and Eric's main concern wasn't about the motorbike or the car, but how I was, and it wasn't too long. I mean, one day we were out in his, he had a Ferrari 365 GTC, a 2-seater deal, and with 12 cylinders, 6 dual Webers, 5-speed, and manual, and he had it painted lilac so Alice could drive it. And Alice was in and out of there, you see, as were a lot of girls to see Eric, you know. But he had it painted lilac, so for her. And they wouldn't sell a Ferrari in those days to a woman. They wouldn't do it. That was a man's machine.
Oh my God.
They would not sell it to a woman.
Jesus.
Anyway, he had it painted lilac. One afternoon we went out driving, and he stopped, and he said, "Come over here, get behind the wheel." So he got out and we swapped seats. And
You drove the lilac one?
yeah. So the first time I ever drove was, the first car I ever drove in England was Eric's 365 Lilac GTC. And so he said, "You can drive a straight stick." I said, "Yeah, I had a Corvette at home. I had a 62 Corvette, you know." And it was sitting in my mom's front yard with a blown up engine. And when we took off, and it was I mean, it was honking, man, right away. And he didn't drive the way I drove.
But you know, I guess he liked that because he started to drive like that afterwards.
After, yeah. Well, it wasn't too much longer. He went to town, and it was I forget. It was like I want to say it was on a Saturday, because it was like very strange. Because he was gone pretty much all day, and that was the first time he ever left me there just by myself, and it was me and old Don, but you never saw him unless you needed something. And next thing you know, I'm looking out, and here come a tangerine colored Hugger Orange Porsche 911S 2.2, and he comes sliding up, and I was looking out the window as he pulled up right in front of the big window, and I said, "Oh damn! Look at him. He's done bought himself just what he needs, another sports car." And I went outside, and I said, "You got you a new one, huh?" And he said, "No." He said, "This one's yours." And he threw the keys over the hood, and it was like they went slow motion and kind of stopped in the midair, And then I called him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was.
Isn't
It was
that
just
the
like
same-
something out of a movie.
Isn't that the same car that it is in Life in 12 Bars when you come pulling up?
Yeah, it almost hit
Nearly
the kid.
run over the- That's the car.
Yeah, that's the car. Yeah, he bought me that tangerine car.
So if anybody is questioning what you're saying, all you got to do is go watch Life in 12 Bars, and you'll see.
Yeah, you'll see me
you
come
pull
tearing
up.
up
I don't know
the drive.
who had the footage, but thank you to them because
Yeah,
it just validates what you're saying.
yeah. But I never could get the money together. They were just coming out of using shillings and tuppence and stuff like that. So I didn't understand the language. I just went by the numbers, and if I didn't know, I would say.
Well, shillings
Do
and
I
all
have
that
that
was
here,
very
you know?
difficult to understand. And when I moved there, it was the same sort of thing. There were still some shillings around and some of the old money, but basically it was like you're just treating it like dollars, pounds like dollars.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna pay for it if you got the money to, and if you don't have the money, you can't pay for
And
it.
I'm sure you bought a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I learned to drive there. Well, I got out on the road one time, and it was really weird because on the other side of the road, and
And the steering wheel was on the other side.
yeah, well, if you're on a motorcycle, it gets really weird because I'm on a motorcycle, and I didn't know if I was going or coming.
Oh my God.
I didn't know which side of the road I was on because there wasn't any cars around to give me any kind of a. So one day I was like totally confused. I had just to pull over and wait for some traffic, so I could fall in behind them, I didn't know where the hell I was going. If I was coming or going, I didn't know.
Oh my gosh.
So I still don't know that. half
The
the
other
time.
question, the same guy was asking all these great questions about, just arriving in England and, you have different terms and things. Were there any terms that the British were using that confused you? Or I know you have a hard time understanding people at times,
Yeah.
especially if they're English, but did you have were there things that confused you over there as far as terminology or?
No, not really, because I did a lot of listening, because
Did
that's the
they
only way.
like your accent? Or
Yeah, everybody wanted me to talk,
Huh?
and
They wanted to
and
hear
they
about
were some of them very proper, like a there's a couple of la-di-das there,
well, really nice. I'm sure.
Yeah, really nice. They talk like they've got a mouthful of potatoes sometimes, Like,
But they wanted to hear about your upbringing.
Yeah, and I was pretty much embarrassed about. I wasn't ashamed of the way I grew up, but I was embarrassed by the stage of poverty that I was raised in.
Well, and suddenly you were with these very
And
wealthy people.
suddenly
in England.
I'm with people that.
You're saddling up there with some pretty.
Yeah, it was all
25s.
Ferraris, Porsches, Rolls Royce, and Jaguars,
I mean,
and the odd Bentley.
you were sitting at a table at one point with some group of people, and you didn't even know where to start with the cutlery. You didn't know.
No, I just, and the lady I was with, she said, just watch me. She said, start from the outside and work your way in.
Right.
I mean, there was more food for one person than was going to feed an army, you know? Like 7 or 8 course meal. I mean, golly, you know? Pass the potatoes, please, you know?
And that was in the south of France somewhere. It was like, where
Yeah.
was it? Where was it?
It was, actually, it was in Paris.
That was in
That
Paris.
particular ordeal
But
was in
didn't
Paris.
you drink the water that you're supposed to clean your fingers with?
Yeah, I did that too. They had, this was, and I knew I was getting them goats, but they needed it. They needed a good dose of,
This is all those
and so
French,
it's
French
like, yeah,
people.
and there's all these Madame Patinot's daughters coming out parties, a little bunch of la-di-da people, and so they bring out your finger bowl, and it's crystal
Right.
glass like this with lemon floating on top of it, and I went, perfect, something I could get behind, some lemonade. So I did my lemon up in there, put some sugar in it, started up, and I was having me some lemonade. And it was like you could have heard it. The silence was deadly. It was a yeah, but I knew I could get away with it, you know.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I had fun I had fun learning all that stuff, you know, and
Were they very forgiving, those French folks?
absolutely,
They
you know,
were?
absolutely. And everybody always treated me with kindness and respect, and they knew that I didn't know, so they tried to help, assist, you know, show me the way.
So did
Yeah.
you manage to ever tell anybody how you grew up and the stories of your life?
No, because I just couldn't. I wanted to just keep away from all of that. You know, I grew up out of it, and I had made my way through it all, and in Memphis, you know, working so much, and all over the Mid-South, playing and singing. I didn't want to revert back to Diaz, Arkansas, and those cotton fields. They're still there.
And then the very first things that happen to you is that you get hit up with, you know, people like Mick Jagger asking you about your dad being a preacher, and
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
him, but other people want
Yeah.
to have
They
that
knew, but
rub
we didn't
off-
talk about it, you know.
have that rub off on them in some way.
Yeah, everybody wanted to have a little bit of this,
I just want to see his face came out of all that.
yeah, this blue-eyed soul, but only mine are brown, you know. Yeah, everybody wanted a little bit of it, you know. Eric got a lot of it, you know. He and I were amazing together.
You were a great songwriting team.
Yeah, we're a great songwriting team. Very natural. Didn't have to work for anything.
Yeah.
No, it came real natural. All the songs we wrote never ever was a struggle for anything. I mean, we were in the TV room one day and we're talking about cars and guitars and rock and roll. And this is in the afternoon, and I had a pen and paper in my hand, and sitting by the telephone. The TV room was a little old bitty room. Wasn't very big at all, you know, just enough room for a couch and a TV and a fireplace. And I was sitting in this very uncomfortable chair by the window, and the phone with a big black ivory phone, you know, hello, one of those. Yeah, hang on. Tick, 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 one of those kind, you know. What? I said, hold on. Tick, tick, tick. Excuse me. But we're talking about cars and guitars and rock and roll, and he turned to me and he says, why does love gotta be so sad anyway, Bobby? And I said, why does this gotta be such a long song title, you know? And it just fell out like that.
And you were the one that was writing at that point, right? You were writing it down.
Yeah, I was writing it all down. So it was great fun. It was real natural for us.
So you have some car crash stories from, you know, learning to drive there.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
having accidents
Until
along the
I
way.
wound up.
You crashed that Porsche, didn't you? Did you not?
Well, I spun it out, and that's why I traded it for the Motorhead Ferrari.
You left it.
Because I wanted a Ferrari like Eric's. I got a 330 GTC red one. Swapped it even for my crashed Porsche. They all was going, "You traded the car that Eric got you." I said, "It was a Porsche. You seen the size of the engine in that thing? It's only about this big, you know."
Oh my God.
I wanted this like 12 cylinder, 6 dual Webers, 5 speeds, and yeah, that was it. That was it. I never did in my whole life ever want another Porsche. When it aquaplaned, granted I was going a little fast. But as soon as that happened and it spun around, I knew that it was going to have to go, you know, or I was going to have to slow down one. And I knew that slowing down was not an option, you know, for me at that point in time in my life. But yeah, I had some other ones too, but it's pretty unbelievable. But oh well, I think we ought to save those for some other time, you know.
That's fine.
This is just getting me there. You know, we can deal with me being there and then being exited out later, you know.
Even though we've done them before, you know.
Yeah, but it's different now.
We've got.
We've done so many of these videos.
And well, a lot of people don't want to go back to try and locate some of this stuff. So
No.
talking about it again is not going to hurt. It never gets tiring.
No, and it's always the same, but a little bit different, you know. So
True.
colorful, like me.